Hey everybody, welcome to another Heart of the Swarm match. I'm Khaldor, of course, and we have another Protoss versus Zerg in front of us. And I apologize in advance. I know, I promised you guys that I would focus on a few different matchups first. And I have all those replays already in my folder, and I will definitely record them very soon. But I just received this replay, and it's a little bit insane. The game is a bit crazy, and I just could not wait to record it and to show it to you guys. So bear with me. It's definitely going to be worth it. This game is a bit insane, and you will later experience why exactly that is. As you can already see in the chat, we have our Zerg player to the top left in blue. It is Quantix Hyun. And to the bottom right of the Kill on Flats, we now have in red the barcode Protoss player that he is encountering in this ladder match. Hyun is currently #1 Grandmaster player in, well, on the Korean server. So he's been #1 since the Grandmaster League was opened up for the season. And so far he's doing a pretty good job up there. Let's see what he can do against the Protoss player in this game. The game itself, I can promise you that much, is gonna take a little while. There's a lot of shit dying here, a lot of action later on. So if you're currently watching this VOD, I don't know, after you woke up, make sure that you get your breakfast over to your computer, get something to drink, get yourself a coffee, pause the VOD for a second, get all that stuff, because we will be here for quite some time, but it's gonna be pretty cool. So talking about the game a little bit, the players, as you can see in the chat, just typing GGO. A few pleasantries before the game starts, and as you can already see, Hyun is not taking any risks here. We have with the spawning pool first, not going into a hatch first play, which you can definitely do if you want to be a little bit more greedy, but if your opponent starts up with a forge, then you are always endangered of being can rushed by your opponent. So Hyun playing it a little bit more safe here, opening up with the spawning pool, going into the hatch then as the second building. Could have started here with a hatch first. His opponent starts with the Nexus, so we'll build the forge a little bit later, as you can see at the bottom right. But in this scenario, Hyun doesn't really know that. He didn't send out a drone scout or anything like it. He has no idea what's happening to the bottom right. The Overlord just now coming in. You can really see that so far Hyun doesn't have a clue about what's happening here. But the Overlord is going to arrive now. And of course, with the timing of the forge, he knows, well, actually, you went for the forge first, didn't you? So the Zerg player of the day is going into a third base immediately. This is just a reaction of what he just scouted. If he would have scouted, let's say, a gateway first or a different opening, then he would have been a little bit more reluctant to actually go into a fast third base. But with the information that he has now, he knows there's not going to be an early push by the Protoss player, so he knows it's safe to take the third base for now, but he still has to make sure that he scouts properly. One set of links. That's all that he needs at this point. Wants to have a quick look what's going on here. He actually gets in. Nice. Uses the gap in the wall of his opponent and gets those two Zerglings in, which is really annoying for a Protoss player. So Paul the Protoss here, he will definitely not be too happy about what's just happened. If you have two Zerglings in your main base, it's always a bit of a pain in the ass. The reason is quite simple. Those Zerglings, yeah, they're probably not going to kill too much. Maybe if they're lucky get a probe kill. They shouldn't though. But they're gonna mess up the entire mining process for the Protoss player, and they will also reveal everything that's happening in the main base. You can really see how active Hyun is with those Zerglings, trying to force the probes away from the gas, and he succeeded several times in doing so. Paul is going to shift with the mining pattern of his assimilator to the top right, to the bottom left, then maybe has even to go back up to the point where his first zealot is finally in the game, and then he can start to chase those links away. But at this time, the Protoss already lost a fair amount of minerals and of mining, of course. So very annoying, and Hyun uses those links not only to annoy his opponent, but also to scout what's going on. He knows about the double gas, he knows about the number of probes that we have here, the energy on the Nexus, what the chrono boosts have been used for. It's all pretty useful to him, so very good start for Hyun into the game so far. Our Protoss player is not taking too many hits here though. He's still fine, he's still on two bases, he got a very aggressive, or let's not say aggressive, very economy-focused, economy-oriented Nexus. First, now has a really good economy, a good saturation on two bases. You can see the chrono boosts on the Nexus, a lot of workers out there, and he's even able to pick off an Overlord because Hyun was busy microing his links in the main base that he didn't realize that there was actually still an Overlord hovering over the natural base of his opponent. So at this point, we even have another probe sneaking in, trying to maybe find a spot to place down a pylon. But you can really see that at the start of the game, we now have 38 harvesters against 39, both of them with a decent economy. And the Protoss even now going into another base, taking this third Nexus, trying to destroy the rocks here with a cannon. So trying to play a very, very economy-oriented game. And even applying a little bit of pressure. Going to the top left and trying to just force a few more links of his opponent. But you can see on the production tab here that Hyun is not overdoing it. He already built a few Zerglings when he saw those units moving out. But at this point he's really completely confident in taking down this gateway aggression with all the links that he has. And he's even able to back those Stalkers into a corner. Takes out all of them. Really well done by Hyun here, and definitely a bit of a micro slip up by his opponent. Paul losing 2 Stalkers and 1 of the Zealots. That's definitely not what you want to happen in the early game. Reason being, of course, that now he did not only lose those units, he can't be aggressive anymore, but he also doesn't have any map presence, and that's really bad. Hyun is now in a position where he can spread his creep if he wants. He already has the creep tumor trying to connect the natural and the third base, but he can just control the map at this point. Taking up to a layer now, getting additional gas in the main base, and if you look at the unit counting station, you can really see that Hyun was focusing mostly on queens and drones. He only built as many Zerglings as he needed to just fend those few units in the beginning of, but elsewise he completely focused on getting workers out there. And this is kind of the art of playing Zerg. You always have to know when can I build drones and when do I have to build units, and Hyun is of course a master and he knows exactly how to do that. You don't get rank 1 on the Grandmaster, in Grandmaster, and especially in Korea, without knowing your shit. Now we have even a 4th base coming up for him, going into double upgrades. He's really trying to go straight into Roaches, into Hydralisk with a Hydralisk den right now, even droning up more, up to 13 and 12 additional ones. But of course our red player to the bottom right is not lazy either. He has a double Stargate. The one thing that is a little bit annoying for him, of course, is that Hyun already knows about it. He has an Overlord position that is more there to scout the 4th base. Sorry, the 3rd, of course, that is. But he knows about the double Stargate opening, which is one of the reasons why we have him going straight into Hydralisks, even now with Infestation Pit. He's going for extra queens. Hyun knows exactly what's coming and he's trying to prepare. And this also includes that he wants to spread his creep a little bit more. Hydralisks, of course, can now get the upgrade for speed, which we see on the research tab for Hyun. But still, they're a little bit slow at the beginning when the upgrade is not done just yet, so you want to have creep if possible. And at the same time, our Protoss player is doing a really great job here with this wall. You might have been a little bit surprised when you saw the positioning of the warp gates earlier because of this shape, but he does it because of this move. Killing the destructible rock tower and then making sure that the rocks form a wall, the cannons basically a 2nd wall, and with the warp gates a 3rd wall. So this is really, really defensive what he's doing here. Even having 3 cannons at his main wall at the ramp to the natural. So he's playing very, very passive. It's a really nice move here by the Protoss player, trying to turtle it up on 3 bases, and this is one of those maps that lends itself a little bit to this style. So he's just playing the map here, very smart. But on the other hand, he's losing the initiative. He's losing the opportunity to be aggressive, also because he lost the units early on. So Hyun is doing the only thing that he really can do. He knows that there is no way that he can break through here. This is just a little bit too much, and the same goes for the one entrance to the 3rd base that is completely blocked. So what he does is, he takes a 4th base, he drones up, he goes into a 5th base now, and you can really see with the saturation, 16 workers over here at the 3rd base, has 16 workers at the natural, in the main base there are also 16, so this is really what you want to do. If you look at the hatch and you think about the saturation, then you will always be shown that the ideal saturation is 24, and this is definitely true. With 24 you get the maximum amount out of one of your bases, but at 16 you have 2 drones on 1 mineral patch, and which means that each drone has the best mining that they can get. So this is why Hyun splits his drones like this, 16 at each hatch for the minerals and then the added gas. Really important to know here. But at the same time, our Protoss player is also taking it a little bit easier. Taking a 4th base right now and once again getting all those cannons. He's really going for a very late game oriented strategy, already going straight into Tempest. We talked a little bit about how Hyun didn't invest too much into early units, and the same is true for our Protoss. He only built 1 Zealot after he lost the initial one with those 2 Stalkers, and then added 5 sentries, all those cannons that we have here at the front, to make sure that he can't be attacked, and went straight into Tempest. So we already have a lot of Tempests here, we have a few Void Rays, and we have a really good economy for him. Comparing now just the number of harvesters, 73 to 90, the base up here is not saturated just yet, but that will be the case very soon. Hyun now in this game realizing that he really has to prepare for the late game, even taking a 6 base, spreading his creep like crazy, and with the hive tech that we saw coming out of him earlier, he's now going straight into Vipers. And this is one of those combinations that you could really see quite often already on ladder in several leagues, just going for Hydralisk and Viper. The thought process behind it is that whatever your opponent builds, the Vipers can abduct it, just put it into range of those Hydralisks, and that this would be a big problem. Hyun, realizing that this is going to be a drawn-out game, is also not relying solely on the Vipers and the Hydralisks, but he's spreading his creep so fast forward that he can put pressure on his opponent with Spore Crawlers. So he knows what's coming here. We talked about the Overlord that he saw earlier. He didn't know that there were 3 Stargates, but he saw 2. So he knows what's coming and he wants to prepare for it. He just wants to be ready for anything. Trying to spread the creep forward so that he can use those Spore Crawlers later on in the fight itself. But the Protoss is now on 4 bases. You can really see him adding more and more cannons at this point. So he's playing a very defensive game, using the hallucinations here to scout out what's happening with Hyun. And Hyun is now the one who tries to be aggressive. He already used Consume to get a maximum amount of energy on those Vipers, but he cannot really attack here. Going into those cannons would be suicidal with the added army of the Protoss player coming in or swooping in from the side, so he has to be really careful of how he approaches it. The upgrades at this point are really decent. +2 attack, +1 armor, going to the 2nd armor upgrade, and now on Hive, even going into the Hydralisk cavern. But here come those ducks, and he's trying to get the Tempest ready. The Hydralisk doing a good job here, and the Vipers are still in the position where they can abduct unit after unit. The Protoss player with all those cannons, the added force fields, nice, zoning out the Zerg player here, and all those added Tempests at the back with their huge range. They're just taking down Hydralisk after Hydralisk. Hyun suddenly dropping down to 125 supply, going straight up to 180 again with all the lava that he had already banked up. But still, you can see that he's struggling a little bit to break through here. He's even now using those Spore Crawlers to give him more energy for the Vipers. He knows he somehow has to deal with those Tempests. Then you can really see that with a range of 15, that it's very difficult for Hyun to approach this. Our Protoss player here is solely relying on Tempest, and by now he also has High Templars with the Templar Archive, which means that he can use feedback against those Vipers. And this is one of those compositions that Zerg is struggling a little bit against, because the problem really is you want to go in with your Vipers trying to abduct the units, but at the same time you are afraid of getting into the range of the High Templars, because with the feedback your Viper will be gone immediately. Another skill that we see here, in case you were wondering, was those crystals over here signify. It's actually Reveal. It's an ability that the Oracle can use. And here we go again. The Hydra is trying to get into position. All those Tempests doing a lot of damage. Here come those High Templars using the first few feedbacks, getting rid of those Vipers. Yes, the Tempest are 2 in range of the Hydralisk thanks to Abduct, but immediately Hyun has to back off again as he realizes he just can't get close enough to this. We by now have 13 Tempests. 5 added High Templars, and Hyun is just a little bit... I mean, he has no idea what to do at this point. You can really see that he's struggling. He's thinking about, well, what can I do to break through this? My opponent is on 4 bases, has a really good economy. I struggle to actually break through his defense. At the same time though, he has so many bases, and he added the additional ones only to get gas. He doesn't really need the minerals. He's already at 3,000 minerals. Gas is the more important point. And this is also the point where it's going to be rough for the Protoss player to survive in the late game. Because he has the minerals, but he's limited to 8 geysers in total, 8 assimilators. And this is what we're gonna see very soon. With 6,000 minerals, he can really afford to go into those additional cannons, and that's what he does because he wants to be defensive. But we have him on a very low amount of gas. The thing is, though, he's able to get at the same to the same supply as them. He's really closing the gap here, and he gets a fair amount of upgrades too. With the structures that he has, we see him now in 20 cannons. And just looking at the upgrades, research +3/+3, once again Abduct being used. Get over here, and bam! Both Tempests immediately down. A little bit tricky right now, and what Hyun is also doing is using the Overseers here to make sure that the observers of his opponent cannot scout what's going on here. He wants to make sure that he has the perfect amount of information, and he's limiting his opponents as much as he can. Another reveal used by the Oracle here. Hyun now up to a total 8 Vipers, taking all those additional bases, and at the main base he's also adding additional spires. We have him with a double spire at his natural here, trying to put a Ultralisk into the fight as well. but he is really in a situation where it's a little bit difficult for him to pull this off. Bam! Once again the abduct, but now Storm is also done, and those High Templars with the Storm and the added amount of DPS by those Tempests are just way too much. Hyun is dropping in supply, going down to 27 Hydralisks as we speak, but those High Templars, they don't have the energy anymore to use another Storm against the low HP units that are giving him a hard time. But the Tempests, they are still alive, and with the units lost, or the resources lost, you can really see that Hyun is a little bit struggling here. 15,000, actually more like 16,000 resources lost against 11,000. This is really going to be tough for Hyun to break. And now we have even a forward Nexus. And you might be laughing a little bit and be like, what? What exactly does he want to do with the Nexus? Is he BMing Hyun here? I think he's actually trying to set up a Nexus so he can use the mothership core to set up the photon overcharge and then go straight into the Nexus cannon to make sure that he's crushing this a little bit more. Hyun now even going for the changelings, and you might have wondered a little bit, okay, well, why do these zealots look like this? And this is one of the skins that you get if you, I think, achieve level 20. I'm not quite sure about the level, but this is one of those added skins that you can have. The same is true for Hyun's Ultralisk. You might have seen it a little bit earlier, but this is actually the new skin. Looks a little bit like a Tron skin for the zealots. I think it's pretty cool. And here we have the skin for the Ultralisk, in case you're wondering how that looks like and you didn't watch the Dimaga VOD that I recorded earlier. But well, here we go again. Once again, both players about to be maxed out, and it's really transparent by now that the Protoss is struggling a little bit with his gas if you compare it to the minerals. But Hyun is going for it, and this Nexus this time has to be cancelled. Bam! Doesn't even cancel it. Boom! He doesn't need to cancel it. He has the minerals. That's definitely not an issue for him. And those Tempests, look at this army. 16 Tempests by now. There are so many of them. Hyun is really trying to break through and take down this fourth phase of the Protoss, but the cannons give him a hard time, and even with the Vipers and the abduct, he's getting them into range once more, but the Hydralisks, they are struggling. So many Tempests with +3 attack, and Hyun is just a little bit desperate here. He's looking at this, he's like, well, I have the resources, I have the map control, I have everything, but I can't beat this guy. So I think his thought process at this point is most likely going to be, well, how can I starve him? How can I just make sure that I have the better economy? Let's get another base, even get one to the top right, trying to control the entire map and make sure that I get all the upgrades. Researched most of them. Didn't get the +3 attack upgrade for his melee units just yet, but this is one of the things that will follow very soon as the +2 upgrade is done. But the Protoss is now in a position where he's pushing out a little bit. So a bit of a crazy game if you think about how we started here. The Protoss play on this map, just making sure I want to have 3 bases, going into a 4th, securing them with a lot of cannons, and then going straight into a Tempest play that he makes a little bit stronger by adding the High Templars for the feedback. And right now, with those oracles that he's constantly building, he's also in a position where he can just get a few additional skills out there that help him. Reveal helps him quite a bit here, and now he has additional observers also on the map to make sure that he knows what's coming on. Once again, the Storms, High Templar power added by the Tempest. Those Hydralisks never able to get close enough to the High Templars to take them out, and this is just a zoning problem for Hyun at this point. He doesn't really have any Vipers left, and he will have to build a few additional ones. There we go, 7 Vipers being added right away. But it's very difficult for him to break through here. And he's looking at the game and he's like, okay, what kind of composition can break through this? And with Hydralisk, he doesn't have a lot of luck. Hydra and Viper apparently doesn't cut it here. So with the double Stark not Starport of course, but with the double Spire that we have, we highlighted that earlier, he's now going into double upgrades. And he also has the lava to pull this off. 48 in total, that's definitely more than enough to remax immediately. But the thing is, what do you max out on? We have him now with the choice to go into a few Ultralisks. And one of the things is, what you want to do is, of course, tank a little bit of damage, maybe even get close to enough to the cannons, that you can tank the damage with the Ultralisk, and then just bust through here. The big problem is that the Ultralisks alone receive a lot of damage by those Tempests as well. So it's not easy for Hyun to do anything with them. He's even losing ground right now as the Protoss player pushes out. Has the forward Nexus now that he can always equip with a Mothership Core and a Photon Overcharge. But it's very difficult for Hyun now to make this work. And he's just looking at the game as like, well, you have a very static force. You can't really move out and you're not fast to react. So what I could do is just use a Nidus network. So with the Nidus network, he needs, of course, vision in the main base. And this is one of the things that we will maybe see him try to get later on, getting into the main base and putting up another front. But once again, the problem for Hyun is really to control the center now. He did that earlier with the added Spore Crawlers, but now he has a problem with those Tempests. And the Protoss player is really eager to get himself another base. He plays a very, very safe game, and a game that is designed to just slowly creep across the map and slowly gain ground, which is exactly what he's doing here. Taking down the base that Hyun was trying to get at the top right, and taking another pylon here. And you can bet that the next thing that he's going to do is add additional cannons. With 10,000 minerals, he can definitely afford to do it, and it's all about getting the additional assimilator and getting the gas. Getting one base after another to push Hyun back and to establish himself another mining base. In the main base now, we have one overseer here and one here, so Hyun is suddenly going straight into the Nidus network, and this is something that of course the Protoss player sees, but he doesn't really realize what's going on here. He didn't see the Nidus network, he didn't realize what's happening, and it's already a little bit too late. The Nidus network is in position, and here come the Vipers. God knows what they are trying to do, but they fly straight into one of those cannons. And suddenly here we have the army, but the mothership core with a recall recalls back to the Nexus, and now suddenly those Hydras not doing anything anymore. The first victim is this Nidus network, but at the same time this allows Hyun now to be a little bit more positional. He's trying to go to the top right and take down the space that all the Protoss was trying to build up, and the thing is that we still have a few Tempests available, and also those initial High Templars just use the Storm to obliterate all the Hydras that are trying to move in here. Another attempt maybe to set up another Nidus network with the Overseer to the right side of the map, but he's already down to 5 hit points, and with all those additional Tempests now in the vicinity, it's very difficult to really make that happen. So Hyun decides to go for Nidus network to the top right. The cannons already being produced by the Protoss. But for Hyun it's really difficult now to make this work. He's going into another composition. He realized, my Hydralists don't really cut it against my opponent. Let's try and go straight into Corruptors on +3/+3 if possible. The upgrades are not there yet, and the added Infestors will of course help with Neural Parasite, can help also with the Infestor Terrans. But this is really a match where Hyun is going to be in a lot of trouble, as you might have realized already. He's now suddenly the one who is down in, well, in bank. He doesn't have minerals anymore. And he already lost 39,000 resources against 20,000, twice as many as his opponent, and he is really looking at this like, how do I break it? What do I do? And for now, his resolution is to go straight into Infestors. He wants to have Infestors added by Corruptors to take down the Tempest of his opponent, but the problem for him really being that another base has now been taken by the Protoss, which gives him the added gas. He's going straight into those two assimilators, because this is, as we pointed out, the one thing where he's a little bit low. So let's see if that's actually a composition that really works well against the Tempest, the Tempest fleet that we now have for the Protoss player. Looking at the upgrades, you can really, at the building, you can really see that with 26 cannons, there is no shortage on defensive structures. 15 additional ones now being added up here and in the middle of the map. So a very, very defensive position now. And this is a style that reminds me a little bit of what we've seen Zerg do against Protoss in Wings of Liberty, when you went into Broodlord and Infestor, trying to turtle up as much as possible, and then once you got the Broodlords, push out. It's not really exactly the same, but the idea behind it is a little bit similar. Go into a very defensive posture, try to hold against the pushes of your opponent, get this Tempest fleet out there, and then slowly get base after base. This is the strategy that we see currently. Now Neural Parasite even being researched here at the top right. More and more injects, of course, but lava are not really a problem that Hyun is struggling with. Here's one of the big fights though. Immediately the storms everywhere. Infested Terran lending their strength to the battle, but with the storms it's really difficult for Hyun to just get them into the fight, and the Tempests alone are doing so much damage and are always out of range because of the 15 range attack that they use here. So now suddenly it's Hyun who needs to be more defensive. He is being pushed by his opponent, and the Protoss with the Tempest is now moving in to take down another base of the Zerg for Quantic Gaming. So Hyun in a very dire situation here. He is being forced back, and yes, he has now once again a little bit of a bank in the mineral department, but he is just so far behind his opponent. We have even now probes going across the map, sacrificing themselves so that the Protoss can go into additional army supply. And looking at the army supply is still in Hyun's favor, but it's a very it's a very shallow army supply if you can't deal with your opponent's army. And what the Protoss does here is he forces Hyun to fight in cannon range all the time against the High Templars. Nearly 12 of them by now. Using the Oracle here for vision, very, very smart. Bam, another reveal. Willing to sacrifice the Oracle for the skill. The reveal is there. Here come the Vipers, immediately being feedback of the single abduct, but at the same time we see finally the Nodal Parasite, even a couple of infested Terrans joining the battle, as the Corruptors are being taken out one by those Tempests, and Hyun is dropping in supply by 100 supply down to 99. 70 lost for our Protoss opponent, but he is still getting the better end of the fight. By now, Hyun lost 56,000 resources, 30,000 lost by his opponent, and this is just a very, very frustrating battle for Hyun. I mean, what exactly would you do? Think about it for a second. If you had unlimited resources in this game and your only limitation would be the supply, what would be your weapon of choice? We even have now Dark Templars roaming the map trying to take down economy bases. 22 kills on this one High Templar, eliminating the entire worker force here. This is 19 workers killed by the Protoss, 14 by Hyun so far. But now, with the base gone in the middle, in the top center of the map, we will have another base taken by the Protoss. He's slowly creeping his way towards the middle of the map, taking base after base. Hyun is now going into 120 Zerglings. He knows that he just can't build a lot. He doesn't have the minerals, the gas anymore. So he's relying on Zerglings, and he's once again trying to just outmaneuver his opponent. Being the better macro player, trying to just make sure that he's the one who attacks at multiple fronts, because this is an army that he can't engage head on. And if you think about it, what would you do? Write in the comments on YouTube what exactly, if you were the Zerg player in this scenario, what would be your unit choice to take this down? How would you deal with it? Those units are on 3-3. Well, not really. They are lacking the third Protoss plating upgrade and also the plasma shields. This is definitely something where he should have used them or built them already. But it's definitely a very, very tough situation and a tough strategy to face. 40 cannons by now, and we will see a lot of additional cannons here at the space in the top center of the map. And Hyun realizes now that maybe he can go into additional infestors. With all those links, he's just moving in, scouting for now a little bit what's going on here. Not using them quite just yet. The Protoss, very defensive, having still those walls, only a few cannons over here, but a lot at the center base. To the top, we have him with a lot of bear cannons to the top right, even going now into additional void rays. Resources lost, 57,000 against 28,000. Half of the map still covered in creep, as you can see. Hyun has the perfect vision of his half of the map. Look at the minimap. You can really see how Hyun controls most of the map still, even though he already lost the advantage that he had earlier on in this game. But he cannot really press forward. He's trying to, and his idea is now to go into Queens. He thought about, okay, what can I do against this? My Hydralisk and Viper composition didn't work. I tried it with Corruptors, it didn't really work. Can I go into maybe Infestors? Had 16 earlier, was a little bit more successful, but didn't really cut it either. So let's just try it with Queens. 15 by now, and adding more and more Zerglings and Queens. Playing this a little bit more mineral heavy, as he realizes that he's going to be low on gas. So he's just looking at his army and is like, well, what do I have that can deal with air and does not cost gas? And the only answer is Spore Crawlers and Queens. Doesn't get the Spore Crawlers here, but relying heavily now on Queens, building 5 at a time, trying to move in once again with the army that he has, and maybe breaking through. Cannons against Zerglings, using very well, using immediately his blinding clouds here against the cannons. So takes down this base and has another force over here. As soon as those... the storms are good though. As soon as the High Templars and the army of the Protoss moves to the bottom, he wants to have another force that can go to the top right. The storms take down the second Zergling force, but one of those swarm buddies is already to the bottom right, where we still have one Dark Templar trying to take them out, but the Overseer is already moving in, granting detection here, and the Dark Templar is of course not enough to deal with this. So suddenly there's a lot of pressure to the tech of the Protoss player. Losing the Stargates here and also losing the rest of his tech structures, the entire main base exposed. He has to do something, and this is the opportunity that Hyun takes to go to the top center base. Storms are once again the weapon of choice for the Protoss, who zones out the entire army of Hyun with the Tempests and also with the added Void Rays that he has by now. Defending this base, making sure that he still has income. But he's losing, therefore, as a result, to the bottom right, everything else. He has to make a choice, the Protoss that he has. Do I defend my mining base? Do I sacrifice my main base? Or do I use my army to go to the bottom right and make sure that those Zerglings are not going to be a threat anymore? And at this point, he realizes it's much more important for me to get those additional simulators. With 10,000 gas, he can always go into additional photon cannons at the tech once again, but he needs the gas here. Hyun moving down, using a Nidus network in the main base, could have evacuated the links, but decides to just go for it. Moves in with the Zerglings and takes now down not only the cybernetics core, but also everything else. This is going to be a little bit of a base race, a crazy game that is really getting a lot more crazy as we are watching it. Queens everywhere, 28 of them in total, and now the Air Force of the Protoss moving to the top left, trying to take down these bases, taking down the hatcheries themselves, and therefore limiting the production of Hyun. +3/+3 is done for Hyun on all his units, or maybe all of them. The air units still like the third attack upgrade, but you get the gist. We have now another base being eliminated, and both of them still at a lot of supply with 172 and 173. Our Protoss sitting on 12,000 minerals by now is eliminating now the hive tech, taking it down. Queens are being built everywhere, but the big problem with Queens is that Queens also have a lot of energy. This can be used to transfuse, but the problem is that feedback is very strong against Queens and of course also against Infestors. So it's going to be a battle between the High Templars and the rest of Hyun's army. If he can eliminate the High Templars somehow, maybe with Neural Parasite even, maybe with Fungals, with anything, then suddenly this army might be exactly what Hyun needs, but it's not going to be easy, not against Tempest and High Templars. Moving in once again, trying to take down all those cannons, but this time the Protoss is ready, moving in with the Storm, trying to make sure that those Zergies are not going to be a threat anymore. Can he get close enough? Here we go. Here we go. Feedbacks everywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4. Using the Storm to zone out the Queens. And from the safe distance, the Tempests are already doing a lot of damage. Hyun down to 130 supply against 157. Resources lost by now. 70,000 against 42,000. The Queens are giving the Protoss player a tough time though. This is definitely the best attempt that Hyun had so far. But with 14 Tempests left, this is just a huge army. And the Queens, very low of creep, are taking hit after hit. The High Templars moving in again for the feedback. And just diminishing those numbers of Queens. He's down to 12 already. And you can really see that there is a lot of... this is a bloodbath, basically. Hyun losing everything. And his opponent is now up to 14,000 minerals and 1,000 gas still, starting to replenish his army with additional Void Rays. This is just a bloodbath. This is the Protoss massacring Hyun. And this is just an insane game if you think about what we started with. A 3-base player facing a Zerg that controlled the entire map, took every single base, and now we are in a scenario where the entire left side is mined out. Hyun doesn't have a single mineral patch left anymore. And he has to suddenly deal with this army. And he doesn't know how. He can build Queens, but he's lacking gas. There's just no gas for him to take anymore. This base is gonna be lost to him in a few seconds. Even if it wasn't, there is just no gas that remains. In the middle of the map, 2 of the Void Rays get caught off guard a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because there's just so much to back them up. This army is not gonna be stopped in this match. The number of Queens just not sufficient anymore. 7 are there, 4 will join them, but 10 Queens, what can they really do against all these Tempests? And look at them, 18 kills, 21 kills, 22, 10, 19, 16, 13. A lot of kills for these guys. The High Templars here also with a few kills thanks to the Storm earlier on. And this base is still full on mining. It's mining gas even with 5 out of the 3. And we still have a lot of the probes also going for the minerals. Now finally the rest of the map is going to be taken out. Zerglings, well, they can't jump into the air and take down those Tempests. That's going to be a vain attempt. But Hyun is at a loss here. He does not know how to deal with this. And the Protoss, he just played a very defensive game, waiting for his opportunity to move out, and a lot of patience involved here. Very similar to what we've seen in Rings of Liberty with Brood Lords. A little bit of a different style here. A lot of Void Rays now part of the composition. A slight switch in the army composition for the Protoss, but still a very, very strong and aggressive army that he's controlling here right now. So Hyun is losing everything now, and the Protoss definitely with a victory in this game. A little bit of a different style that we've seen here. Not really what we've seen so far a lot in Heart of the Swarm. We've seen this Roletta occasionally, but that's definitely what... yeah, now basically with the drone attack going for it with 46 harvesters. That's all that he can muster at this point. But yeah, it's one of the things where you think about, okay, what can you do against it? Hyun should have identified a little bit faster what is going on and what the idea really was. Then he might have been able to go for different strategies. One of the things that might have been a good choice is a switch into a heavy Mutalisk play and just trying to overwhelm his opponent when he realized that there was not a lot of anti-air. If you remember, we had a switch into Tempests right away. The problem if you go into Mutalisks against an opponent who has 2 or 3 Stargates is though that it's very, very difficult if he goes straight into Phoenixes and has the range upgrade. So you really need an element of surprise here. Maybe even a choice, well, going into Broodlords would not have really been a choice to break the defense of the Protoss, because once you go into the Tempests are the perfect answer against the Broodlords. But maybe with a very aggressive switch into Mutalisk at some point in time, it could have been yeah, doing a little bit more damage before Storm is out, of course. But a very interesting game, at least I think so. And of course that leaves us with the question, what can you do against this strategy? Once the army is set up, it seems to be quite unbeatable, so you have to defeat it a bit earlier. And there are several things that you could do that we already talked about a little bit, but I'll leave it to you guys. Write into the comments on YouTube and tell me what you think could have been done in this replay, in this VOD. Browse through the VOD once again and suggest what your idea is, how to break through this, what could have been done. I'm definitely interested in what your solutions are. I feel it was a pretty interesting game. Was a match that if you watch it too often, I guess is gonna be a little bit frustrating, but a style that I feel had to be shown at some point. So I felt it was pretty funny. It was actually like a couple of really good fights and a very, let's say, a very smart Protoss player. He played this very well. But for now, this is it, at least for today. So I hope that you enjoyed the replay, enjoyed the games. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done that just yet. And I guess I'll see you guys soon. So bye bye.